We back? Hello? Hello? Okay, so yeah, what happened just now was I forgot that all of my internet comes through my Linux laptop, but I spend all day with both computers on, a Linux and a Windows. So I got my Linux computer here that I spend about half my time on, and it has Wi-Fi, and the PC doesn't. So what I do is I have an Ethernet that actually lets me connect this computer to the internet. And I forgot that, and I unplugged it, and then we lost the internet. But yes, there's a Linux here that I spend a good amount of my time on, and I don't have the Mac here in the office because right now I kind of do the Mac port whenever it's like free time and I feel like it, so I actually left that. It's in my bedroom, so if I'm ever like, you know what, I'm going to pull that out and do some Mac port stuff today because I'm feeling like it. But the point is I'm trying to diversify so that I can survive this, what seems to me like perpetual suckiness getting worse across the board. Seems like one of them will always be slightly better than the others, maybe, so hopefully I've got options. Plus it lets me ship on, like, this whole thing is intertwined. Having those things lets me ship on them, and the reason I want to ship on them is so that I can migrate to them if needed. And since I want to migrate to them if needed, it's nice that I have them in the first place. So, yeah. Okay. If they just, if they leave Windows 7 the way it is for a long, long time, we'll be okay. That's the only thing I can hope. Alright, there we go. So that's good. I'm not actually going to implement remove right now, but I just want to make sure that it has an architecture that will allow me to implement remove if that becomes something that I want to do. Which I think that architecture will let me do a remove that I'm okay with. Okay, so what are we at? 1 hour? Okay, we'll go for 2. So we'll do another one. Last thing I need is whenever I request this, I'm going to make a separate copy of it because a lot of parsing happens in multiple threads and stuff. So what happens is I have the user pass in some memory. It's supposed to be just a gigantic amount so that it definitely has room. But if it isn't, it'll just return an invalid parse context and the thing can bail. But I pass in memory and the ID that I want, and then it uses the array of contexts in the ID to find the one. Okay, so the only thing that could go wrong here is if you pass in an ID that I've freed, I don't actually have a mark on here that says whether something is free or not in any way, which is possibly problematic. So let's actually be a little bit more robust about how we do this. let's say like that, right? And so whenever we get a slot, we'll say slot freed equals false. Then what we can do is we can say, all right, stored parse context slot equals 0 if ID is less than parse mem parse context counter. Then, speaking of which, I did that with a plus plus, didn't I? I was supposed to do it with a post plus plus. I don't know how I remembered that. I was like, wait a minute. So I've got Stream Brain on right now. I should have like forgotten, but somehow I remembered. And like didn't notice it when I was doing it. CSC Jim. Alright, so the idea is if the ID is in the right range, then let's slot equal the parse context array ID, and we also need to subtract out max, and if slot is freed, then let slot equal 0 again. Then finally, if slot does not equal 0, then what we can do is we say give me the parse context. And then we're going to make one of these and fill them out. Yep. Okay, result.valid equals true. Well, we don't know that yet, but we'll find out soon. If oh boy. Okay, so stored parse context. I also need like a KW keywords. Right, so what needs to happen is there's like a mem size right here. Okay. If context mem size is less than mem size, and you know what, I should stop right there and go and actually implement mem size because I'm gonna forget if I don't. Okay, there we go. There we go. That'll force me to figure it out later. And continue. Then what we can do is say, okay, this is valid. The KW table keywords comes from the context KW keywords. KW switch over to PP. KW max equals max. Memory size equals mem size. Mem copy into mem from, oh boy, those are wrong. Okay, so this is mem plus dupe. Yeah. I always wished void pointers had just had byte level addressing. Like, I don't know. It'd be nice. Void pointers, I mean. I don't know if I said pointers, I meant void pointers. Um, oops, just go there, will you? Then what I want is just base putter equals the context. Right, so basically what's happening there is the context and the yeah, I agree with Ginger Bill's statement. Void pointers are really weird if you try to fit them into the meaning of the language. They're very weird, but still useful too. Anyway, see, what I would have done is I would expect that if you have an operation between two pointers and they're the same type, that's defined. If it's between two void pointers, it's bytes. And if it's between a void pointer and something else, it's bytes. That would have been a really useful thing, because then I can just introduce a void pointer into the arithmetic anywhere, and that signals that I'm switching into byte mode, no matter what you thought you were doing, given the length of the type you had before. Okay, so the point is, take the base pointer, which is pointing at the context, and right after the context, the table of strings are allocated, and then the hash table itself is allocated. And so then if I take the base pointer, okay, the base pointer is the small part, not the big part. Got it. So here's something weird about how my brain works. Whenever I'm doing subtraction, whether it's pointers or anything else, I always ask myself, do I expect this to be positive always? And if so, which one is supposed to be bigger? And that's how I make sure I get my subtraction order right. Because I have a really hard time for some reason. Like, for instance, if you have two vectors and you're trying to go from A to B, do you do B minus A or A minus B? And then what I do in my head is go, okay, imagine B is larger X value than A, then going from A to B is positive X, so it should be B minus A. Got it. I have to do it every single time. Yeah, I'll just say about pointer arithmetic, I like having the ability to do things based on struct widths or type widths, but I also like having the ability to do it on bytes, and I wish there was a very convenient way to tell the compiler, hey, I'm thinking about this in terms of bytes right now, and then, okay, now I'm thinking about it in terms of struct widths, like, I don't know, maybe two separate syntaxes, I don't know what it would be. But it's often that I want to switch back and forth between them, and like in C, you switch to talking about bytes by just casting all your pointers to U8s, and then casting them back to what you want, or if it's a void pointer, it'll just work. Which in this case, it's not. So, actually, we're going to have to do this. KW keywords. PP keywords. You know, I'm realizing this won't work. This just won't work at all because the way I wrote the tables, they have pointers to the string table, but the string table, those pointers, I'm copying the table now. So what I really want is offsets from the base of the string table. Which means I want to go rewrite that basically, so that this just works. Alright, because going in and fixing up the pointers sounds much, much worse. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm saying, alright, so we're bringing in the context. The context has a keywords and a preprocessor words table, and I've got pointers to both of them. And I'm rebasing them so that they'll go somewhere inside the memory that's coming in. And then we're casting those back to the void pointers that they're supposed to be. When we set them. Okay. Alright, and then what I want to do is a memcopy into the memory from the context. Context mem size. Context mem size. There we go. Great. Alright. So we've actually finished this, but now we're going to have to backtrack and fix the table layout in the Lexer library. I want the tables to be copyable, and I didn't set them up that way. Huh, that's an interesting one, insofar as. Alright, let's go back to the Lexer library now. So basically, I want it to work the same way, except that I want to invert the string base from the string portion from the table portion, and then I want to store offsets from the base of the table instead of offsets from 0 in the memory in the memory space. Okay. So clear the memory. Out base, no. Memory will go. Wait, that's what outbase means. Okay, so I want outbase to be memory plus size of table. Size of table can just be this ain't no Java, this is C++. Also, welcome. Okay, I was a bit confused. The size of the table is what happens when I take the size of a void pointer and multiply it by table max. Let me set table max and keywords and stuff up here now. So this comes from memory. There's my keywords. Alright, here's the size of keywords max. That gives me the size of the table. Then those are all my iterators. Here's my output base and my outputter. I'm going to call it the outputter now. Different naming scheme to make things more clear for my head. Alright, outputter. Outputter. Alright. So here I'm just figuring out where the keywords are going to be so that I can put those in the better place. Then I fill wait a minute. Boom. There we go. Now I can set the whole table up at once. And then I clear to 0. I get my output pointers for the string table. I get all of these things that I need to iterate. I write all of it out, and then I fill the table. Okay, that's good. That's with string lengths. Basically do the same thing here, except we don't keep the length pointer around, and we need this for figuring out the lengths instead. So there we go, that gets me lengths. And now I'm sitting there looking at how easy it is to copy between those two, and I'm wondering why I haven't collapsed that into one code path. Not sure. I mean, the primary reason is because it would be very heavy on the parameters here. Yeah, maybe I'll collapse this into one path with make table string lengths. Length putter. Length putter. Not sure why metagen is so slow. I wonder if that's because the Lexer changes are actually making it worse instead of better. That would be tragic. I thought a hash table would help. Oh, it could be that my hash function is like super bad and making things worse. I don't know. Like the hash, maybe not the hash function, but the hash lookup. Yeah, something like that must be happening. Probably. I don't know. I'll have to find out. Right, I said I would do this later. Alright, before we go on to deal with that, I'm going to do this to do, but first we need to fill the table differently. And we need to query the table. Excuse me. We need to query the table differently too. So when I fill the table right now, what I do is I iterate over all of the input strings. I read the string length out, so I've already written the string length into the buffer. So basically I'm writing a string length, 4 bytes, a type, 4 bytes, and then the content of the string. I then pad that out to a 4 bytes, and then I do the next one, right? So what we have here is I get my string length by reading out from here, then I advance 8 bytes past those two 4-byte integers, and then I hash the string using, this hash. Hope you like that hash, because I haven't, thought about it at all, or done anything about it, and how much it's dumb. But then I get my first index, and I begin a loop. I get the keyword pointer. If that pointer hasn't been set, then that means this is a free spot in the table, and I set that equal to string -8. That's the pointer. That's the spot where I set it, and that's not right anymore. I want to set it to that plus keywords. Right, so keywords is the very base of all the memory. Since I'm putting keywords first and then the string table. So if I start there, then 0 will still be a null. Like I basically always, when I'm doing relative offsets, you gotta remember 0 needs to be reserved for null for your intuition to work. So the keyword is null because the table is there, not the string stuff. And then I store the address of the start of the string, and then I'm subtracting out the base there, and then I'm gonna have to cast that like I'm some sort of OpenGL API for now. Alright, so here's where I'm taking the keyword putter, and what I need to do is basically add the keywords back in. Keyword putter. That's a void pointer pointer. Cast it to a U64 pointer. Dereference it. And then add in keywords. And so I'm just going to go base equals UA keywords. Base, okay. Okay, so again, I'm taking, now it's going to complain that these are not the same type actually. So there we go. Well, that's weird. So that's definitely broken because that probably should have crashed. We're going to step through that soon. Table match. Okay. So here I hash the table, I get my first index, I start looping, I get my keyword putter, and then, yeah, this right here is where it should have crashed, but oh well. Keyword putter. Wait a minute, that shouldn't have even compiled. Suspicious. Still not getting why that compiles. Okay, now, I don't trust that any of that makes any sense. Seems too far-fetched, so we're going to walk through an execution of it now. Might as well get rid of this one, because I don't think we're running 4coder by the end of the stream. Oh shit, did I just close them both? Ugh. Okay, here we go. Doop. Doop 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 doop. Doop 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 doop. Doop. Doop doop. Doop 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 doop. Doop doop doop. Doop doop doop. Doop doop. Doop 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 doop. Doop. Uh-oh. Whoa. Whoa. This is weird. Okay. What's going on? So it's busily assigning zeros, and after that it freaked out. But that's all allocated memory because bad food is what the Visual Studio thing puts in it. Yeah, that's the weird thing, isn't it, guys? It seems like infinite recursion, but it's not in my code. It's so weird. Look at this. This is all like standard library stuff in an infinite recursion somehow. But I think it's because there's an exception handler triggering, and then that leads to the bug again, and then that leads to the exception again kind of situation based on those words in there. But anyway, point is, switching off of hexadecimal display. Okay, so, right. I don't care to understand why it was behaving the way it was. I know what I did wrong, and so we can fix it. I was supposed to count down and pointer was supposed to count up, but I got them backwards. Alright, now MetaGen is crashing, which is good. Yeah, you guys, if you understand anything about, operating systems or whatever, feel free to investigate and discover what it is I just stumbled upon, if you can. It might be very particular to the code I have written here, but I don't care. I just want this to work because writing hash tables all day is kind of frustrating for me. I'd like to get past it. Okay, so string is perfectly valid. How big is I? String length. Ooh, okay. Fill table. Alright, let's take a look. String item. Type. Type length string outputter. So I get my outputter. I write down the length of 4. Then I advance. I write down the type of 38. I advance. And I fill this with a T, R, U, E. I then what's this? Alright, are there any other occurrences? Because I think I might have made that mistake all day long. Nope, okay. There we go. And obviously that's bad because the app functions is being auto-generated incorrectly. But it's good because it means it's not crashing. Type def exec command sig access test. Now what are you talking about? This actually looks just fine. Here's a thought. There we go. That explains it. It's a different access test. Wait a minute. What? I see. So the meta generator accidentally picked that up as one of the functions, which it's not supposed to do, and then it freaked out because it's all wrong. That makes sense. So now what? Guess I step through it and figure out why it's picking this one up. I said 2 hours, but I still feel like I have a lot of stamina. We might go for a full hour more still. Um, so that's just all zeros, even though I just made the table. So that's bad. I'm going to assume that if I look at it like right here, table 45, that also is bad. Token array out. What do you got for me? Here are the tokens. Here's how many of them there are. And I'm guessing that I won't see anything in the range. Oops, give me Lexer types. I won't see anything in the range between 23 and 32 because I'm betting that none of the keyword detection works. 23 and 32. Lots of 33s, which are identifiers, which might actually be keywords that didn't get identified as keywords. Night, Ginger Bill. Thanks for stopping by. Yep, so I don't see any keywords showing up, and there definitely should have been some. So, that is probably what's causing it to pick up the test access thing. So if I remember correctly, if I come here to MetaGen real quick, I have meta keywords, and well, it shouldn't really be picking up unless, I mean, it shouldn't, yeah, there's no inline or anything, so I'm not sure why it's picking that up still. But we've identified a bug. Let's fix that bug. And then keep working on it. So it doesn't actually fill the tables at all. I'm going to walk through that to see what's happening. Okay, so we have string, which if I do string plus 8, 4, I get true. There you go. So that looks good. I'm going to put string right there. We're going to keep string length right here. True. And then it grabs a hash real quick. Finds out its first index. Keyword putter equals 0. Oh, I see. That's dumb. 139. That probably explains why the metagen is so slow. It's just taking forever to fill up these tables because it's doing like an n squared iteration over them on the number of keywords. Oh, that's only a... we'll see. It might also be doing that like m times because I'm reinitializing it every time, which is dumb but easy. Parse context add. That's what I'll do. That's what I'll do. Okay, so anyway, fill table. Wait, where are we here? CPP Lexer fill table. Oh, there it is. There it is. So it's that I care about. All right, I'm gonna be right back. I need to fill up the water bottle, which I forgot to do before the stream, but we're gonna keep streaming. So brief pause. Be right back. Okay, and we're back. So while we're here, let's go to the Lexer types, keywords. Okay, so now I can just dereference that and add it to the base pointer, and then I cast it into length pointer. This should be +2. Okay, so that's still crashing. Let's take a look. Got it. That's on line 144. Okay, now what? Table match. Item putter out. Plus base. Alright, that was more like what I would expect. Now you're still picking up the access test function for some reason. You're not supposed to pick that one up. Alright, let's figure out why you're picking it up. Pile meta unit, metal X, Lex file. Get to the end. We'll trust that the Lex went well. No, we won't. Hey, you just click and drag. Okay, that's not a thing. Fine. It's still not generating any keywords. Okay. So, it's actually still the problem. Let's see, what do we got here? Doop-a-doo. $9.20. So they're all $9.20. Well, quick question. What's at $9.20? As in, what happens if I do keywords plus $9.20? Okay, give me 12. Yep, that's what I expected. So they're all just set to the beginning. Why is that? Oops, don't do that. Open that back up. There we go. String -8. Alright, what's going on with you? We're advancing string, so it shouldn't be the same thing all the time. It also shouldn't be at every slot. That's perplexing. 134. Okay, let's try walking through that. Not you? Yeah, you. So I get my string. Okay, 920. Compute a hash. First index 54. Keywords plus index. I get this thing. And by the way, right now, let's do 920. Wait, it's 115. I already know that. It's all zeros. So it comes in here and it writes down a 920 position 54. Okay. Oh, shoot. Okay. So it's different, but still not right. Let's pop in there. Jump to here. And let's see, the keywords. Not keywords. This looks good now. That looks good. But, what about the, what is it called? The token array out. Whoops. Does it have keywords in it yet? $27. Yeah, that's a keyword. 27 again. 23. Yeah. So it looks like it's now identifying keywords. I guess I should double check that it's doing so correctly. So let's put a break right there. Alright, I'd like to skip ahead to this moment. Alright, I'd like to keep skipping ahead to that moment. Actually, I want to skip ahead to this moment, and I want to see what STB says at each point. U32 access test U32 lock flags U32 access flags B32 result if lock flags access flags result return result internal void. Oh, that was I skipped a good one. Editing file, working set, buffer set, no buffer summary, if. There we go. Doop, 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 doop. Doop, 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 doop. Doop. Oh, so there's part of the problem. I'm iterating over the whole thing. I should be, if I hit 0, I should be breaking it. I'm not. Okay. Speaking of which, how does that spread look? Didn't think to check that when I was looking at it, but how does it look? That's pretty dense. Oh, it's pretty good. That's pretty good. So hopefully it's hitting at very near the right thing most of the time anyway, but the loop is at most, what is that, 20 steps? Not even. If it is wrong. So, yeah, that'll be good once I implement it correctly. Yoshimoto55, I'm sorry, Yoshimoto555 asks, does 4coder support custom fonts? Yes, the answer is yes. What you do is you, if you have the newest versions, there's a folder called fonts, and any TTF file you put in there will be picked up. Well, the first 10, up to 10 TTF files in that folder will get picked up and put into the list of fonts you can use. So it's easier now, basically. You just drop the font into the folder and it finds it and loads it. If that's not working for you, then you're probably using an older version of 4coder, where I'm surprised that the renaming thing doesn't work. Brothier asks, why only 10? It's supposed to be unlimited, but it's not for a couple of reasons. One, because I have a fixed width array in there that's 32 that I haven't bothered to like make extendable yet, which I'll do someday, but for now it's set 32. But the reason it's not even at 32 is because I forgot to paginate. Like I have like the UI where you select your font, it puts 10 on one page, and I was going to put a next page button so that it doesn't have to load like 100 fonts at once. It can have up to 10 on the screen, which lets it do some limiting how many fonts can show up on the screen at a time just lets things run a little faster. So it's like 10 at a time, then you'll hit the next button to get the next 10, but I forgot to implement a next button, so you can only even get to the next 10. You can actually load up to 32, but if you want to use the ones that come after the 10th one, you have to like programmatically set the font by name, because the UI won't let you do it. So like if you set it in your config file, the font name you want, and then you put 32 fonts in there, but the one you want is later on than the 10, the config file will work. It's just the UI only supports up to 10. So because of that bug, where I didn't implement the thing. First index 12, string length 2. Equal result equals 1 less than a and if that. There we go, true. So item out becomes keyword putter plus the base out. Oh, I see the problem now. I think. Maybe. 7. What? Oh, okay, so item putter out 2. What if I ask for 2? 27. There we go. Now let's see if the outside thing actually handles that correctly. Yeah, 27. Now let me just double check. Extra types. Control flow. Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's good. I got it. I know what's going wrong. Uh, Preprocessor. Maybe it's just PP. Okay, so come on. Here's identifier. Default pound ppdef. There it is. That's a dumb name for it. Yep, okay, I see it. Keyword table instead of the preprops table. Bet that'll explain it, but I'll keep this up just in case. Lexer.h keywords. There is keyword. Alright, so if I go to Lexer types, lex data, preprops table. Yep, that's the right name. You're still saying that, huh? Let's take a look at the preprops a little more. Okay, so stb define. Okay, so that should pass. That should find define. Wait, what? stb. Why is that not got a +1? I must have lost it. Let's see. Norcasp Art asks, what are you doing? I don't know how much you know about the project, 4coder, that I'm working on, but I'll just give you the synopsis of the little thing I'm working on right now. I'm setting up the parser to handle customizable keywords so that people can set more than just the built-in keywords as highlighted for themselves. And so I'm debugging the lexing library that powers all of that right now so that it can handle the new keywords system. Alright, now let's go in there. I should get S. Says define. S line is 7. Is that good? That contains a space. Oh, I'm supposed to use... Ah, that's right. So I equals 1 while that, blah, 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 blah. I'm supposed to use plus I. And then minus I minus 1. Must have lost that information when I cut and paste some code over top of the correct way to do that. Okay, so KW keywords now wrong. They should be U64s. So Yoshimoto555 asks if 4coder supports TTF fonts without anti-aliasing. And the answer is yes. You can turn off anti-aliasing if you turn on hinting, if that's what you're asking for particularly. Like, it's set up in such a way that you get one or the other, right? So if you turn on hinting, that's with the flag -H when you launch. It'll hint the fonts instead of anti-aliasing them. If that's what you're talking about. If not, I'd love to know why you'd want anti-aliasing turned off on your fonts. Yeah, if you do the hinting, it does like the thing where your fonts, instead of looking sort of blurry on the edges, they look very sharp but squiggly, like more pixely, but sharper. Whereas I do anti-aliasing, so they look kind of blurred if they get small enough. Instead of looking like odd shaped but sharp. Alright, there we go. I think that's basically working the way I want it to now. So that's good. And now what we can do is say right, there was one little problem, which I was being dumb about how I get matches. So table match. Yes, right here. I get keyword putter. Now, what I want to do is if keyword putter equals 0, then break. It's not a match. You just result false. Otherwise, you go on and do the work of testing if it is a match and returning true. And if still not, you go to the next stage. That should be better. Okay. Hopefully that's not substantially slower than the old version. It shouldn't be. Not sure why it doesn't feel like it's as fast. Maybe it was always slow and I just wasn't being critical. Alright, so next thing I should do is I said I wanted to collapse these into one code path. Let's do that. So the way I can do that is make table. This already passes in a length array and a length stride, so that's the one I'm going to keep. What we're going to do is we're going to say, look, if the length putter equals 0, that means we don't have length information, so we're going to have to do it this way. we go. And then we can eliminate this one. And now I'd love to sit here and like write this out in the way where there's only one for loop and there's a generic Ginger Bill already left. I always like I'm always asking language makers to solve this problem, and I never feel like they like take it to heart. But for anyone who's here, let me point out the problem. I have 4 versions of this for loop. I don't want to put an if in the for loop. I want to be able to instead say, let me write the for loop once and compile it in 4 different ways. So let me put it this way. What I want to be able to do is write this for loop with the ifs inside of the for loop, but then tell the compiler to hoist the ifs outside of the for loop and generate 4 separate loops. Because I don't know if all compilers will know to optimize that way. Maybe they do. But if they can't be sure that these ifs are always going to have the same value, which I am sure they will, I'm sure that they'll always have the same value, but if the compiler can't be certain, then it won't be able to do that optimization. And they might not do that optimization anyway. But if I could just say, here's one for loop, it would look something like, let's say it looks like this. Right? I'll just make a little space here to show the example. So it would look like this, and then I would say, okay, so there's a question about how I get my length. Alright, so U32 4-tac length, if len putter does not equal 0, do this, else do this version. Right, and then the same thing on type. If type putter does not equal 0, do this version. Else do this version. Right? And then what I want to be able to do is say like bake, and what I would do is or maybe not bake, maybe like hoist, right? Or something like that. I don't know. Something along these lines, so I can say here are the, or like it would be like pattern X. And then I could say maybe maybe I would write out this if the way I did, right? And then I could do like X with right, something like that. Obviously this exact thing wouldn't work because the type putter has actually a dynamic value that changes here, so I would need to like, maybe write it more like fixed type or actually more like type putter len putter. Here's how I would do it. And then, let's see. Oops. Get rid of that. Replace len putter with len putter. Replace type putter with type putter. And I would say, not this one though. And then I would say, alright, so which one do I want len putter on? So if the len putter equals 0, okay, with not this and not this. And then, let's see, this one has a type putter, so not this, and then this one would be not this, right? Something like that. Insofar as says C++17 added constant expression if. Yeah, that sounds like something that might do what I'm asking for. It's probably more like it could do what I'm asking for, except it's missing one detail that would make it complete, and so you can't actually use it. That's my always experience whenever I try to do a new C++ thing. Is like, okay, I'm going to use constructors and cast operators to make my function generically take several types that can all go in the same positions, that get cast in different ways, that get converted in different ways to the right thing, and oh wait, it doesn't handle this one possibility that I need. Like on the first try trying to use this technique, the first thing I try to use with this technique doesn't work, so I can't. It's always impressive to me that the first time I try to use a feature, I've come up with a case where it doesn't work. It's weird. Okay. Alright, there we go. Now I've basically got 15 minutes left. I've got it doing basically what I set out to get it to do this morning and have been doing all day long. Parse context yet. Okay. So now it should be able to get a parse context. Let's see, to do that it gets the context memory, the ID, void memory, and the memory size. You need a pointer to this, right? Whoops, come on. Also, I see Cuber Caleb made a good joke. I didn't respond to it in time for it to be appropriate, but I appreciate the levity of the comment. You're being serious? I mean, normally a serious comment doesn't start with something something. Something something's kind of like a signal like, oh, you know, the usual thing that it goes here. Oh, so Ratchet Freak says that what insofar as it's talking about is compile time constant if, so it won't work for loop switches. I think I already deleted the example code, but the usage code of one of my dream features. But anyway, so if it's compile time constant, that means it's an if that is decided at compile time, which means you can't have it compiled the for loop in both ways for both values of the if. It just at compile time either it takes one or the other, but it can't like take that code and treat it as a sort of a concept with portions of the concept that need to change based on an external concept. Yeah, so there's a template way you could do it. I probably took it off my channel back when I decided to delete all my bad. Like I had a bunch of bad tutorials on how to do multi-threading and stuff at one point on my channel from like when I was like 15, and I decided to delete them because they were wrong and terrible. The only part I kept was the Lewis stuff because I actually kind of like did an okay job, I thought, on that part, on those tutorials. But one of the ones up there that I probably deleted was a bunch of template stuff, and you could definitely do it with templates. The way I would do it is you'd have a template function. The template function would take a type, and that type would inside of it have a static function that is the changeable part. So if you have that body of the for loop, that's one function. It takes a type, actually it takes two types, and those two types will be one of two different types which have a static function that describe how to do that one section. But the problem is the cost of that means you're going from a for loop where there are no function call, like a for loop with however many function calls in it, to inserting up to two more function calls, right? At like the depth of the stack gets increased by 2 just to do that. And hopefully the optimizers can optimize it out, but it probably won't. At least not both of them. Well, you'd think it might be easy, but the problem is I'm actually changing those values. The values that are in the if are actually changing over time. Um, and yeah, so Gabriel was saying another way you could do it is to pass in lambdas. Still, you have to like deal with the fact that the function signatures force you to write it in a slightly different way than what you want. Like, I probably don't want to have to pass in the pointers and get back a result, but it like leaves me doing one more operation than I would normally do just to make it work as a call instead of as an inline. But the other point is, I don't think the optimizer necessarily, like it might figure it out, but the point is I'm actually changing the values that are in those ifs, so I'm switching on them beforehand and then they're changing afterwards, right? So I need some way to tell the compiler, hey, you're allowed to switch on this as if it wasn't going to change, even though it is, in some cases. Yeah, you could just pull it out into a temp variable. I don't know, sometimes I just wish that it was explicit in the language so that I don't have to hope that this is a signal to the optimizer that it'll pick up on and that I can understand properly. Okay. Because that like is a small example of it too. They get things that I want to do like that are arbitrarily complicated sometimes. Data size. There we go. Okay, so I'm passing that in now. And I still need to get off of doing this conversion to true false and get back to the real problem at hand. So let's just do that. There we go. Yeah, I agree that the compiler could probably get those things right. I guess what I'm saying is it'd be if it was expressed in the language, you could do that. The programmer could choose to go arbitrarily deep on that and force the compiler, like, to at least understand that it's possible. And if the compiler optimizer looks at that and goes, you know, it'd be better if the if was not hoisted out, I don't care if it does that. But I have no way to express to the compiler that I intend for this to happen. I can only trick it into happening, which is not the way I'd like to do it, because sometimes it's just too deep. The level of, like, the number of these variables that exist is too many, or the number of states they can have is too many in it. Would be, you know, instead of trying to play the game of, well, let's see what the compiler is actually doing, and then, okay, that's good. How about I just tell the compiler how I'm mentally thinking about this thing, like in an explicit way. Boom, boom. Yeah, it's kind of hard to communicate to the compiler, like, hey, I know that, like, this is going to cause some, like, the, the compiler can't know for sure if this is a piece of code that's speed critical or not. So it'll try to go speed quite a bit, but it'll also think, like, oh, if I expand this out, there's going to be 6 different copies or 8 different copies, and, you know, looks like there's a fairly decent way to get it in just 2 copies or 1 copy without any. If it doesn't expand, if it's long, I won't expand it out at all. Leave the ifs in there, and it's like, no, this is actually, like, performance critical. I want you to trade memory size for the speed at which it will run. And there's not good ways to communicate that. But short of that, because that's a very abstract concept, instead of communicating that directly, since, you know, what exactly how that trades off, it'd just be better if you could, the mental model you want to use to think about your code could match the actual code better. But not in a way that forces you to also add in other things that weren't a part of your mental model. Like, templates force me to add something that are like additional function calls that aren't in my mental model. Yeah, the branch predictor will do some of the work. It's true. But I'm not just talking about ifs either. I'm talking about, like, things that run much deeper than that. select. What I'll do is I'll put this right here, and we will partition remaining part. Wait, mount.h remain. Push block onto the part. Parse context dot memory size. Alright, now we just gotta push this model pointer through in place of the mem pointer for probably several branches of the call tree, or the call graph. Oh, we gotta do this one too, don't we? Hmm. Yoshimoto555 asks, any plans on custom windows we can draw stuff in? Yeah, I'm still haven't really gotten to the point where I'm really thinking about that. I mean, I consider it once in a while. Um, the best I could imagine is opening up a separate window and um, giving you the OpenGL context for that, or something like this. Um, uh, I mean, the other thing it could be is like make my own rendering primitives for you to take over a panel, but that doesn't seem like a very good use. Like a rendering API is extraordinarily complicated, and um, if I just give you the whole OpenGL, access. I mean, what I could do is just say, here, do you want to? I've rendered the screen. Now you can like do any more rendering you want to do, like make your own calls to OpenGL, fill stuff up. I don't see any reason why I couldn't do that. I mean, you'd have to do basically everything from scratch, but it should be actually pretty easy to support something like that. Yeah, I might do something like that. When I switch to the new API, when I switch to the new API for the custom layer that has more control for the custom layer, like better flow control for the custom layer, less callbacks and stuff, more main loop kind of thing. When I switch to that, maybe I'll just say, hey, here's a message that says I'm done painting 4coder stuff. If you want to draw anything of your own, make OpenGL calls, go for it. Well, that's the trick to it, though, is I don't have a way to say, like, maybe there's a smart way you could do these kinds of things, but I don't have a way to say, here's a context that renders to this panel, right? You can't really do that. I could say, here's a context, I set the clip region to the panel, go ahead, but if they just change the clip region, they could draw anywhere. I don't know how you prevent that. And I also don't know how you do something like, say, oh, you wanted Vulkan access? Like, sorry, like you can't just get Vulkan access out of nowhere. I'm running an OpenGL app here. What I could do is have an OpenGL renderer, a DX renderer, and a Vulkan renderer, and say, hey, run the renderer for the thing you're going to want to do. But like, and I'm probably going to do stuff like that in the future anyway. Just have multiple renderers available for the purpose of me learning about them, and also the purpose of flexibility, forcing myself to make sure I can keep things working as rendering stuff changes, potentially. But yeah, it's not clear to me the best way to do something like that. So it's like a back burner thing still. Maybe I just say, hey, it's easy for you to shoot yourself in the foot and draw on something you didn't mean to draw on. I'm not going to stop you, but here is a message that says go ahead and start making OpenGL calls. Do whatever you want. Yeah, I think the smarter thing to do would be to say, let's open up a second window that's a special kind of window, like 4coder would support a custom window, and that custom window could potentially be like, oh, we use Windows tricks to force it into the right position on here, but that kind of stuff might be kind of hacky. I don't know how well that would work. Like, I'd have to get that work on every operating system. If it was just like, oh, you alt-tab between the 4coder window and the custom window that like has output, then maybe that works, but that introduces other problems where it's like there's multiple OpenGL contexts, multiple windows. Do I run things on separate threads now? So like the custom code actually runs in a separate thread so that it can kind of be completely isolated from the other context. Not sure. Yeah, so basically my goal right now is to make something that allows for customization up to but not including that point, and I'm putting that off because it's a completely different nut to crack. See, that's the thing. So Yoshimoto is saying he wants to be able to do like highlighting lines of code, and basically I'm gonna allow highlighting lines of code as a feature in 4coder, so that you'll be able to do that by sometime early on in the 4.1x engine. But to allow like there's always going to be a thing where there's no API for X, but I wish I could do that in my 4coder customization. And the only way to allow that is to say, all right, you can do the rendering. Um, like you can render over what's already there. But it's not clear to me what the best way to do that is. If I take over the window, if I give you a different window and you take it over, then somehow you've got to have a way of either the window is see-through and only the things you render show up. Can you do that? Well, I don't know. I'm not sure how well you could do that. I could do like you don't get a separate window, you just render into the main window, and you just have to be careful not to do something that ruins stuff. But it's unclear how you do like highlighting a line then, because if you highlight a line, you have to render over the text. I could give you a bunch of hooks that are like, okay, you want to render after background has gone in place, but before text has gone in place, um, potentially. But yeah, it's just messy. I think better for now for me to it's better for now for me to focus on the sort of 99% of the features people want are things like highlighting ranges, highlighting lines, giving them various colors. I'm going to provide those as built-in at the 4coder level and push off this idea of maybe having 100% control until I've done the easy things the easy way, if that makes sense. Like just highlighting a line, I feel like that should be built into the API rather than you have to figure out the X and Y coordinates just right and render it. So, yeah, I'm going to try to do the easy things the easy way before I look into that, I guess is my answer. Alright, we'll wrap this up soon. It's building now. Okay, this is metagen stuff. Yeah, stop debugging. It's building just fine now. A little bit slow, but that's probably because we're on stream, now that I think about it. So, I'm just curious to see if we can run 4coder. Shouldn't be able to, now that I think about it, because I haven't initialized the font. Or not the font, the base language, right? So let me go to parse contexts. Up here we have some init stuff I need to do. Let me go to 4ed cpp init. No, 4ed cpp init. I'm starting to get really frustrated with 4coder and how the file switching works. It doesn't default to the best match, it just defaults to the first match, and that's not always the same thing. Not sure why that's X turn C, that's weird. App links init. Here it sets up the live set. Here it does that work. Setting up the language, so I guess I should set up the language here. Models, parse context, init memory. Models, parse context memory. Then I need to give it some memory. Okay. Memory. Where do I get memory? I want it off the partition, I think. Yeah, something like this. Give me 8 kilobytes. That's plenty. Mem size. Mem size equals 8 kilobytes. General. Have I already established general memory by this point? Okay, that's weird. General. Yeah, so that happens during pre-init on the command line stuff. Parse context init memory. Mem parse context add default. Default models mem general and the parse context. That should really go first, shouldn't it? Alright, let's see if it works now. Just gonna open up some 4coder stuff and crash pad. Valid equals false. Alright, let's figure out what went wrong. That should be plenty of memory. That should be fine. So I take as much as I can. There's the problem. Okay. So let me go to models, So the problem is that I reserved 0 as a null value for the IDs, but I initialized these things to 0, which is actually wrong. Wait a minute. Minus equals max. There we go. And now I want parse context, default context. And then I want to go to, well, how do I want to do that? Unclear. What I'll have is I'll say let if ID equals 0, else let 0 have a special meaning when it comes in here so that I can just clear to 0 and get the default, which is going to be which is actually going to be like this. It's kind of confusing. I'm actually going to write this one this way. Do nothing. Came back valid. Ah. Still crashy pantsing. Alright. Back it up, back it up. Lex. Keyword table, mem0. Ah, I see, I see. So what I want to do is I want to say keywords does not equal 0 right here. 471. Got it. Hey, there it is. Let's see, boop. Alright, so now I'm getting in keywords. So, let's see, what have I completed? We did that. We did that. Yeah, so I didn't get to setting up the custom API portion of this yet, but we got a lot of it done. So I'm going to retire the stream because I think I've had enough programming for today. But thanks for everyone who came out for some portion of the 4coder Friday. I'm trying to get this custom keyword thing and probably one or two more things into this build, and then I'll release it, so it shouldn't be too long. And that's about it. Bye-bye.